you'll be on stage 3 and radio. We're on. Well, welcome to Viewpoint. This is a program of personalities, politicians, and perspectives.
Get our act together.
This is the noted announcer Harlow Wilcox speaking, strictly from stage 22. My guest this morning is Mrs. Judy Busby. Actually, she's
I'm
not
not
a
your
guest.
guest.
Well, she's.
I was always here. You forget.
I was just checking on you, seeing how perceptive.
Don't you remember me?
Well, we forget a lot, early. I was just checking on your perceptibility.
How many years have I sat next to? I'm really a memorable person, aren't I?
What was your name?
Well, if I had any ego, it's just been shot.
Well, we did that for a reason. Now it worked, so I'm glad that we did it. So, all right.
What did we do?
I was just checking on your perceptibility. That's all.
Oh.
It's fine. It works. It's working fine. You might remember, Mrs. Busby, that since you've been with me several years now, that we always try to start Viewpoint with a kudo or two. And so let's start with the Lincoln Library today. Kind of interesting that we're having a library feature here this morning. In a matter of speaking, because these folks have to leave right away and get up to the Atlanta Library, where they're promoting things up there. Richard Summerall and his folks down there at Lincoln Library, always trying to do nice things, and they recently had a program for the kids down there. They brought a magician in, and I happened to see a picture in the paper, and it looked like those little rugrats were really enjoying themselves.
Oh, yeah.
So kudos to the library for that little extra effort that they do. Lincoln Community Theater. They're having a production this weekend, starting July 14th through the 17th, and it would kind of mirror what goes on at 214 Peoria Street. The name of the production is I Love You, You're Perfect, Now Change. That would be something that of interest. Seriously, Mrs. Gossett has been working in the background with them, and she said it's going to work out real well. They're going to have a really good production. It's a fun play. There are a lot of funny lines in it, kind of a quasi-musical, as I understand it. I hope I'm right about that. But in any event, seats are available at, of course, the Johnson Theater for the Performing Arts at Lincoln College. And I urge you to find some time, July 14th through the 17th. You'll enjoy a couple of fun hours there, and it's well worth the investment of your time and a couple of bucks. Finally, a lot of people think that seniors just sit around and take Metamucil and worry about what's going on the next day. We got some seniors here at the Oasis who are really very, very active. They're going to have a dance this Saturday night. They're bringing in a noted MC. His name is Harvey Clapsaddle, and he comes from Beeson and Burtonview. That's where his roots are. So he's well grounded in the music of the time, and I think you'll enjoy it. I think there's a $5 admission fee, and for that they're going to give you some goodies, and from 6 to 9 at the Oasis. So come on out, and we'll play a little music and have a little fun. So why don't you let's get on to the business of the day here.
Well, yes, you were talking about your play, I Love You, You're Perfect, Now Change. Well, these people could probably tell us, our guests could probably tell us very well just exactly what it's about, because they're steeped in theater. Cathy Maciariello from Atlanta, who's with the library, has gotten some really great guests to come here to the Flatlands, and
which is really neat.
From New York. Yeah,
it's really neat.
Yeah, and with her today is Mr. Robert LuPone, and he is a veteran of stage, screen, TV,
and producing.
Right.
So he's been a busy fellow.
And you had the
now
right.
He has his own company.
I like your inflection, your French inflection, and the way you said LuPone.
He's probably a Swede.
No, actually, the story behind my name is My father capitalized the P because when I was growing up, Italians were discriminated against, and he was in education where we lived, so he capitalized the P, which is not legal. I mean, it's legal, but it's not a real thing. LuPone in Italian is big wolf with a small P, but he capitalized it for exactly that reason, to make us appear French.
Good for him.
Yeah, so I always tease him that, his real name is LuPone, which isn't just lupo for wolf,
Right.
but big, bad wolf.
Oh,
Whenever you put the O-N-E on the end, like,
that elevates it.
yeah,
then.
it makes
I
it
see.
something big.
It was common, though, in the way back when, to tweak your name a little bit. When my people came from Norway, their name was Aunet, and they changed it to Nesseth. I don't know how they thought that was an improvement, but in their infinite wisdom, they decided to dump Aunet. But they were in a new place, a new life, so they needed a new name.
Well,
were
like
already
Bob
here.
did, it worked.
Pardon?
We were already here.
You were already here
And
when
then
you
they changed
decided.
it.
But I guess that is perfectly legit, as
We'll
long
see.
as you're not doing it to defraud.
Well, we certainly
And
were.
he wasn't.
No, certainly we were.
Oh, you were?
Yeah, his name.
Oh.
Yes, really. Because
Well, how nice for you.
well, no, he wanted to be French as opposed to Italian. I don't know.
You can be, that's good by me. I can live with that.
Italians have much better food, I think.
Well, Bob.
Oh, yes, I think.
I think. But that's a purely prejudicial statement. Because the French have a cuisine that's quite famous as well.
Oh, yeah, yes, I've heard that. Even here in the Flatlands, we knew that. We're really much more urbane than you think we are.
She's a whole lot more than a pretty face, let me tell you that.
I don't even have that
She's a
going
lot.
for me.
And an
Well,
accent.
anyway,
Go ahead, Judith.
we have to be knowing here that Mr. LuPone graduated from Juilliard, which he entered at the tender age of 18, which is, looking at it from my perspective now, just a baby. And Juilliard is only tough. How many students do they accept a year?
Oh, well, I was in the dance department, and there was a class of maybe 10.
Really? Only 10.
10.
Yeah,
This is my teachers in dance when I graduated Juilliard were Anthony Tudor, Jose Limon, and Martha Graham. Which are
yes, I saw Martha Graham. That
Right.
really hit me.
right, those are the 20th century choreographers of the
Robert, would it be correct for me to say that in the dance profession, Juilliard would kind of be the epitome?
Yes, to me. There's some other great schools.
Or epitome, since you're
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, to me, I mean, it's in the East Coast. It's in New York. It's considered one of the top shelf schools
That's what
of
I
the
thought,
country.
yeah.
And that's true really across artistic disciplines. I mean, there are a lot of great
Yes.
schools of theater and music across the country, but Juilliard still attracts great students and famous teachers. And
But for
it's pretty
people
incredible.
like me who are untalented and never even thought about Juilliard, we still know
Yeah.
that it is. I mean, it's a word like Jello or Kleenex. It is. You
In the-
just
in the
describe
profession,
with it.
Robert, you were associated with Steppenwolf. Did I understand that?
No.
In the background somewhere, I thought I read that. Okay, well, it's nice to be wrong. Nice to be wrong once in a while.
No, I have worked in Chicago, but I worked at the Goodman. I worked at the Goodman several times, and Steppenwolf
yeah.
was just the beginning when I was working at the Goodman. Because I hurt myself as a dancer, and then I became an actor. And
Well, but you were only 3 years into
Dancing.
the dancing.
professional life of the dancer, yes.
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 Yeah, just a kid still.
Yeah, I was like 21, right? 21.
Yeah.
You know,
You'd think if I'd been in your shoes, I'd have just croaked right there.
I did.
I suppose. But on the other hand, sometimes you can really make lemonade out of lemons, can't you?
Well, that's
And
knock
so
on
you
wood, That's
did.
what I did.
Which
Yes,
you
thank
did,
God.
yeah.
Yes. But I formed my theater company because I didn't as a dancer. I enjoyed the place of dancer in the world of choreography and art. As an actor, I didn't enjoy the place of actor in the world of theater because there's so many of them. It was kind of a very rough trade in the sense that the competition was very stiff. The roles were not as clean and specific as they were in dance, and so I had a difficult time making the transition from dance to acting. And in turn, as I'm now known as an actor, nobody knows that I used to dance now. I've made that transition completely. But 30 years ago, in the course of trying to get work as an actor and survive as an actor in New York and develop as an actor, I actually, in my anger, formed my theater company. I formed like-minded students around me who were upset with the fact that they weren't being seen, they didn't have an in, they couldn't get a leg up, any of those kinds of things. And we formed our own theater company, which is still in existence today.
Robert, let's go back to dancing just briefly here. That was an early part of your career, which has been very successful even after your injury. But people see dancers on stage moving about as gracefully as they do, and I don't think most of us realize that's very athletic.
Oh.
It's very demanding.
Yes.
That probably is demanding on your physical body as any other, as football, for instance.
Except you don't get concussions. So
well, you do if you fall down.
Well, yeah, but you try not to do that.
You try not to do that.
That's the first rule.
Yes, exactly.
Try not to fall.
Yeah, I mean, a typical day for a dancer is, I'm going to put it in athletic terms. You would have a practice for an hour and a half in the morning at 10 o'clock. And then after practice, you would then have a break for like 5 or 10 minutes, and then you would play the game. You would have a rehearsal in which you would work the game, the game plan, if you will, for anywhere from between 2 and 4 hours. After that, you'd have a break, and then you would come back, and in turn, you would then put the game plan together, and in turn, finish the day with another class. That's a typical day. And class meeting.
That's a long day.
It's a long day. It's a typical day. It's a long day. It's at least 8 hours to 10 hours at Juilliard, at least. And you're learning very varied skills throughout the entire day. One day you're learning modern. The next day you're doing ballet. The next day you're doing soft shoe or something else. You're doing all different kinds of dance.
Well, you have to do them all, though, before you decide to specialize.
No. You have to do them all, and you specialize within that. You specialize, like for example, in Juilliard, the men are very rare commodity, and so what happens is men don't start ballet. Now they do, but then in my day, they didn't start ballet at 10 and 11 and 12. So men came to the dance. I came to ballet at 15, and I was starting to really become a ballet dancer at 17, way late, and never had the feet. Do you know what I mean? They never had the pointed arch and feet. So what happens is men are very much a commodity in dance, and there's a great world of modern dance which can use men who are ex-ballet dancers but still have that skill, because the purist needs to have the leg a certain way and the foot a certain way, and that takes decades to
Those
learn.
are the little nuances about which we know nothing. When you see a dancer do a pirouette or whatever that is, and you see them holding their feet a certain way or their arms a certain way as they're doing this.
Well, you know the ballerina and the arch, right? The foot and the arch. The ballerina has to have an arch with the toe. Well, so does the guy. But you rarely see that. You rarely see that. And yet, sorry.
Oh no, I just always interrupt. I'm so sorry.
I'm in the theater. It's perfectly fine.
Well, you always, we always know in New York when you're walking around, you always know the girls who are in ballet. They have a body type that's very specific, but they walk not pigeon-toed, what's the
Turned out,
opposite,
turned
with your
out.
feet turned out, because those are the,
Their skeletons.
position.
We used to
The
call it a
skeletons are
duck
built
walk,
into
but
that.
I don't suppose they'd appreciate that term.
Say again?
We used to call that a duck walk, but I don't suppose they'd appreciate
What
that.
defends is pretty or not?
Well, it's a pretty duck. Okay.
It's a pretty duck.
But
It's
that leads to the question I was going to ask Cathy. I think of a male ballet dancer, or dancer period, as being short of stature and very lithe. And you're not that small a man.
Well, I'm older.
Not portly. I don't mean
I'm
that.
older now, and I put on some pounds.
Yeah, but you're
I
a
did have a
tall
26-inch
man.
waist.
Well, I did too. So we have that in common anyway.
Yeah, they are. They're not. No, because
they're not necessarily
No,
short,
no.
though. They're because you think about the lifts and the.
Yes, but I think of the females as just being little
Diminutive.
tiny, infinitesimal people.
Well, the muscle in dance is different than the muscle in athletics. Athletics, you build bulk. Like if you go playing ball, you got to have bulk. The opposite is true for dance. You need light and thin and long muscles. And in theory, at least, they're the stronger muscle because of the demands of dance. What you're asking your body to do is so unnatural that if you had bulky, thick muscles, you couldn't do it. You couldn't carry the leg that way. And yet Nureyev, literally, I don't know if you get this on camera, Nureyev had thighs like this in my day when when I was dancing. I danced next to him. I'm not exaggerating. His thighs were this big.
Sure.
Elephant.
To be able to do, and today's dancer too is nothing like yesteryear's dancer. Today they do things that are unimaginable. I was saying I hurt myself doing a double tour.
Yeah.
Now they do 4.
Well, it's just like ice skating or sports, and you
Correct.
look at the skills that people do. I mean, I remember when I was a little kid watching ice skating, if you could do a double axel, that was the most thing you were ever asked to do.
Correct.
And now they're working on the 5th rotation.
Correct.
Yeah.
And it's just people's bodies, and
We fed them
Get so
too
much
much
better.
polyvisol when they were babies. I know that's the answer.
Well, Robert, let's talk about economics for a minute. Obviously, you had this bent towards your artistic entry into the field, dancing, and so you graduated from Juilliard, and you got to make a living. So, what happens then after you graduated from Juilliard?
Okay,
and
so
you want to get on the stage somewhere. Obviously, that's
Sure.
what you're doing.
Sure. Let's start with the reality. You can't make a living. You don't make a living in the theater. Now, you adjust accordingly in a way to survive. You have to survive. So you have to answer that question about survival, which means a lot of times actors will spend 10 years in New York and they'll be a waiter and work occasionally. And then after 10 years, they leave.
Yeah.
And they go to survive. They go to another kind of career, another kind of job. Other actors will work 10 years in the city and then all of a sudden go on television or movies and make millions of dollars. Now, the fact of the matter is, if you look at the union of actors in New York City, which is what I know best, there's 99.9% of those actors are unemployed every year.
Isn't that interesting?
And it rotates. Like this year I'm not working, but next year I got a show. But the fact of the matter is, it's a profession where you cannot make a living, you can make a killing. That is the old cliche that is true. And what I mean by that is, so I'm working as a waiter, I'm making $50 a night, let's say, or whatever it is, and I'm going to class and I'm professionally, disciplined, and I'm training myself better every day.
Hard work.
Very hard work. And no payback yet. And then I get a show, and all of a sudden I could stay with that show. Some actors stay with shows for 20 years. And I can make my $2,000, $3,000, $5,000 a week for 20 years. That's some choices. Other choices, that's not enough. I want to go beyond that. So now that I've accomplished off-Broadway, or I've accomplished Broadway in terms of a recognizable credit that raises my value, now I want to try TV and film. So I go to Los Angeles. In New York now there's a lot of TV and film, but they used to go to Los Angeles and try to make your way there. So economics, it's very tough. You know why? There's too many actors and not enough jobs.
Sure.
It's a very tough, very competitive.
At the entry level, at best, I guess, be very precarious insofar as making money.
Well, the fact of the matter is that higher education has discovered that there's a gold mine in arts programs.
aspiring actors.
Yes,
So
Fine arts
every year,
programs.
coming to New York, Chicago, or Los Angeles is those graduates of MFA programs,
Yeah.
plus BFA programs. BFA used to be just a BFA, that's all you needed. Now you also needed MFA because your competition has an MFA.
Right.
So now it's BFA and MFA programs, graduates coming to those 3 cities. There's 1,000 kids for one part at that age group. At my age group, there's 10.
Yeah.
You see the natural selection, and it whittles itself out. Now, a lot of kids start their own theater companies, like myself. Another kids leave town, start theater companies in Chicago or in Los Angeles, or try to find ways. A lot of kids become actors and then become stage managers, or become playwrights, or become directors. The natural weeding out process. You have to learn how to survive within the context of the competition.
Well, we have a young local boy here, Terry Kinney, who was involved in Steppenwolf and doing well now. Has got beyond that plateau where he's suffering.
He's directed for me.
And he's now doing well.
He's directed for me in my theater company.
Oh, is that
Yes,
correct?
yes.
Yeah.
Did a good job.
Well, one of the things, everybody here who listens probably Law and Order junkies because the reruns are on.
God,
On
yes.
Yes.
spin-offs. Law and Order and SVU, and all of them are on. And there's kind of in New York a love-hate relationship with that group of shows because on the one hand, hello kitty.
That's an old friend of yours,
the shows
Cathy.
do employ a lot of actors.
Absolutely, you know.
And a lot of actors who have risen to be recognized kind of got a start by doing. Well, you've done Law and Order.
Yes, he has.
And some stay, but mostly it's just kind of a little factory where
Correct.
people go through it, and it gives some. On the good news is it gives some stability, to the acting community in New York. On the other hand, it's also fairly exploitive, I would imagine, to some extent.
No, I don't think it's. I think it's what you said. Because of the Dick Wolf and all the shows that he put on New York. That was a bank for a lot of New York actors, where in fact you could make a month's wage on a one-day shoot. Do you know what I mean? And that made you survive that month.
And then you can make residuals.
Correct.
Yes, right.
So
it's hand-to-mouth living. There's no question about it. It's hand-to-mouth.
Kind of
it's freelance and hand-to-mouth.
Flip-siding of that sort of thing. The lead in Hamilton
Lynn?
has run his course now. And they say...
I think he's just beginning.
Well, I'm sure, but
exactly.
I mean is the lead in Hamilton. So now the speculation is, will Hamilton fold?
No, not at all.
Gosh, no.
Not at all.
That vehicle.
Did Lion King fold? I mean, how many? Some of those shows on
20 years.
And Chorus Line ran a long time, didn't it? And,
That's, again, talking about actors and 1,000 actors for a role. There's 10, 12, 15, 100 Lin-Manuels out there that can do that role.
You see, Judith?
Writing it, that's another story.
Yeah.
He gets kudos and credit for spending 6 years and writing it
6 years.
on his own.
Yeah.
No guarantee of anything.
Just
on
something
his
that
own. You plant a crop and hope it grows, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Same
This grew.
difference, yeah.
This crop
This grew.
well, and plus they're already, the touring companies are already being made for Hamilton.
Yeah.
I mean, Hamilton is already scheduled to be in Chicago, so.
And Los Angeles.
So when you get a successful show, I mean, in the end, you'll have multiple touring companies that employ multiple casts that go around for months and years.
So then,
Danny,
he's got
that's gotta
income
be a
from that
tough-
show at least 20 years.
Would it be safe to say that's a tough road? When you're on a road show like, we've been down at Springfield, they bring some really good stuff in here at Sangamon State and Auditorium. Anything Goes comes to mind. A large cast. They did it. That was an outstanding show, just outstanding. But those folks are on the road. They're in Springfield, and then maybe the next night they're in Peoria, or maybe they go further into Iowa somewhere. That's a tough life.
Well, it's all a tough life. What's easy? What's easy? I mean, come on. The thing is, you start with a bus and truck. Let's call the bus and truck where you hit a town at night. You start there, then you go to a sit-down in Chicago for 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, and then you work your way to off-Broadway, and Broadway, and you sit down for a year, 2 years. I mean, it's like London. That's our training ground, in a way. London is all centrally located, so the actors do the theater during the day or the film during the day and theater at night. But they work their way from the outside into the center of town. With us, we work our way nationally, whatever show we're doing, anything goes, wherever it goes, however it goes, to a better contract, to a better contract, to a better contract, ending up in New York, Chicago, or Los Angeles.
Kathy mentioned Chorus Line, and you were Zach in the original cast.
Yes, I was.
Well, and also you were in Jesus Christ Superstar. That was a big one.
Yes, I did the Broadway show and the movie.
Yes. Now, what's it like to be in something that's really made the big time like that?
They call it the toast of the town. Like I was on the towel. Bloomingdale's put on a Chorus Line towel, and there I was on the towel. So we had the keys to the city. It's what Lin-Manuel's going through right now in terms of Hamilton. New York is a particular town in which it recognizes, I guess, the commerce of success, doesn't it? And so Chorus Line was very successful, as is Hamilton very successful, and all the businesses find ways, or department store like Bloomingdale's at that time, find ways to capitalize on that. And so that's part of the capitalism of show business in New York City. And so we became the toast of the town, which means that there were events at restaurants for us, that we were on the towels of Bloomingdale's. We were honored guests at a political function, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you're capitalizing on the success of that show and bringing the consciousness of that audience with you wherever you are. So Bloomingdale's gained something by having us on the towel. Do you know what I mean?
Sure. I thought it was only Disney.
Pardon me?
I thought it was only Disney, and they made the Frozen dolls.
Well said. Well said.
Yeah, and speaking of such things as commerce, mundane as it may be, we have what's known as sponsors here, and therefore we're going to acknowledge them and honor them right now, Mr. Ash. Right back live in the studios here. The Viewpoint is a program that, as always, on Wednesday mornings, 8:15 to 9 o'clock. We have a special guest this morning, Mr. Robert LuPone. He exists and lives and works hard in a field that John and Susie Q. Smith on the street don't know much about. And that's what we're trying to do, is enlighten somebody here in Logan County, out here in Mayberry, as to another way of living, or in some cases just existing. Judith, you had some questions you wanted to ask Mr. LuPone.
Well, and Cathy, how you two hooked up? I mean, you being from Rhode Island and she being from Atlanta, Illinois.
I think, as I was saying before, before the break, I was saying that, you want to be an artist. The best way to be a great actor is have a great director. The best way to have a great artist is to have a great patron. I mean, you cannot do it by yourself. It's a matter of luck, and it's a matter of support. If you have your parents can write the check, that's your patron, right? In my case, I didn't have a parent who could write the check, so I had to struggle like a lot of people. And in the course of my struggles, I found Cathy, who was a funder, which you can talk about.
Well, when I was working for the Andrew Mellon Foundation in New York, and I was in charge of making grants to artists and art-making companies across the country, that's where we met. And I think people have a misconception about what it means to be an artist. They think, anybody can do that, or it's just something people do for fun. And it is fun, and people continue to suffer through what they suffer through because of the gratification it gives. But it's really hard work, and it takes a lot of education and a lot of training and a lot of practice that you can never stop. And so that's not something people buy a ticket and go to a show and they don't quite realize what's gone into making that happen, from the stagehands to the lead artists. And so when I was at the Mellon Foundation, part of what we did was make grants to companies around the country that we felt were doing really exceptional work. And we had a group of probably 10 or 15 small off-Broadway theater companies in New York City that we felt were really important to the ecology of the theater community, and MCC was one of those. And that's how we got to know each other, because the Mellon Foundation made some grants to MCC to do its artistic work. And we were saying before the break, I think that is where we made our first connection, which was just around that sort of professional relationship. But then over the years, we got to know each other better, and we got to be friends because we share a real sort of artistic sensibility about what makes a great play, what kinds of plays we want to see. And so that was a relationship that continued over the 11 years that I worked at Mellon, and has been since. And Bobby actually came 3 or 4 years ago to do a program for us called Behind the Scenes, where we talked publicly about, we did a little interview thing for the public about what it was like to be him.
And we have the pleasure of having Mr. LuPone with us today, because he's here in Central Illinois, in Atlanta, to do something for you at your Atlanta library.
Yes.
See? Well, you agreed on that, didn't you?
Which is really neat. It's really neat, because Mr. LuPone comes from aura that we just absolutely know nothing about, except when we go to put down some hard-earned money to watch a good musical or a good stage play. You enjoy it, and you appreciate what they've done, but we have no cognizance at all of what they've done before that curtain goes up.
Right. That's right.
And so it's nice to have you here with us, and we appreciate that.
Thank you. I was going to say, we're talking about two different kinds of theater. In other words, there's artistic, art-oriented theater, and there's entertainment theater.
Okay, yes.
I am not of the entertainment theater mode.
Okay.
Entertainment, that's not what I do. What I do is the art. I make a pretense that I'm trying to do art. And what I mean by art is I don't want to be highfalutin. What I mean by art is I want to address the audience's issues and make them laugh or cry. I want something to cross the footlights into their hearts and souls so that they have a theatrical experience like aha, or they'll never forget. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. That's what interests me. It doesn't interest me that you just have a good time and go home. And I've learned something about that. I must say, the last show I did was just a good time. It was very successful, and it taught me that there's nothing wrong with a good time. So I'm a little bit in trouble, because my whole life has been about this art side, and I'm finding that good times is not so bad.
You know what I mean? Not to throw host owns that.
Exactly right. And it's also what the audience, I'm also more and more sensitive to what the audience wants. I want the audience to feel something. I want them to laugh and cry. I want their souls. I want them to have a moment that they'll never forget. That's what I want. That's what the theater did to me when I was growing up, and that's what I want for them. But sometimes some audiences don't want that. They just simply want to have a good time and a good laugh, and that's all.
And there's room for both. I mean, I think there's the theater too that what I think you're calling art theater, to where you're actually, I mean, people are transformed in a permanent kind of way by the conversation that the company has had with them on stage, and often that means they've gone to an uncomfortable place.
Correct.
Or an unfamiliar place that's made them question some of their perceptions, or
Yes.
and they've gone away, and you know what it's like when you go see something and you go home and you can't stop thinking about, gosh, remember that, and oh, I missed what that person said, or that's a different experience than going away and saying, oh my gosh, that was just so much fun. Both are legitimate, but art making theater is kind of about getting to that place where you go away with sort of a different
Which is exactly what I'm trying to do with the kids here.
Yeah.
Okay.
With the kids here, I am trying to push an envelope. I want them to have fun. It is entertainment. That's what we're clear about. But I'm also trying to give them an experience about what the potential of theater might be in their imaginations. So exercising their imaginations beyond the scope of what they think they know. Do you know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
So one of the things that we're trying in this piece is having them talk to each other through musical instruments without having words said. Now, whether it works or not, we'll see. But we'll see. That's the risk of theater, isn't it? Right?
Sure.
But the youngsters who appear in high school stage plays or high school musicals, 99% of them are never going to do anything beyond just that. But having experienced that and participated in it, they're the better for it.
That's right.
Well, and we're talking about kids here ages 6 to 11. So there's some little tykes, who are coming every morning for 3 hours, and that's a big demand on a wee attention span.
Well,
to get them to work, and so structuring the day has been challenging, to say the least, for us. But they're learning 2 major, lengthy, popular songs. One called "Uptown Funk" that was sung by Bruno Mars, and one called "Can't Stop That Feeling" by Justin Timberlake. They're doing. They've got all the lyrics memorized. They're doing choreography, and then they're also creating these musical interludes with a whole variety of percussion instruments, and they'll perform Friday night what they put together. And the goal is A, to have fun, B, to grow, and C, to have a kind of great experience with theater that will make them different.
Right.
Oh, what you really should be doing is bringing that whole concept to the adults. We approach every issue in the world with our concept of it, which is right, of course. And it's so refreshing and so enlightening to see, oh my gosh, I never thought about that angle. You really must teach the adults as well.
If there's a funder out there, we'll have him back.
Oh, right.
Well, you're absolutely. This is the thing about age, which is surprising, because of course I'm still 18 in my mind. I don't know about you.
Well, I was, obviously, or I wouldn't be here today.
And you just continue that too, Buster.
Yeah, exactly. So, but my point is about that is that I have a ballet class that I teach at my age, which is 70 this year, to my age group.
Oh, you're just a kid.
Thank you. But to my age group, and we do a ballet class, not at all like I did when I was 18. I must say,
it's not Juilliard.
No, it's not Juilliard.
Okay.
It's not even. You can't even mention that word in terms of what I do.
Okay, excuse me.
But what's interesting is exactly what you just said. The body at my age, everybody comes in, they're overweight, they're tired, they've got no lungs, blah, 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 I'm going to die tomorrow. And all of a sudden, they start working the body, and they begin to recover or reawake that sense of their bodies that they remember they had a long time ago. And I've seen waists drop. I've seen butts tighten up. I've seen a tremendous change in the psyche of my age group just because they do a fake ballet class once a week.
Now, Mr. LuPone, you are a production company. Am I correct in that?
Correct.
And you are always on the look, you and your associates in your company, for vehicles that will entertain people
Correct.
On stage.
Correct.
That's see again. We just don't understand that part of the
I
the
have a
world.
literary department that reads 1,000 plays a year,
Oofta.
and I'm like, while I'm even here, I've got 4 plays to read to facilitate either a decision to produce them or not. Not for next season, but for the following season. So I'm looking at product 2 years away.
That's very interesting. Again, we just go and we go sit down in the theater and we watch this lovely musical or this great stage play, and those of us who've been privileged to watch a lot of them have really, our lives have been enhanced by that. But we never sit and think, how did this happen? The curtain goes up, well, that's just not fun.
Well, for example, I'll take you through a typical show. I'm working on the season 2 years from now. In the course of that, we'll make a decision, me and my partners, to do this particular play. Bob the Show. Okay,
Yeah.
do that play. Bob the Show has to be within the budget that I can afford, number one. Number two, is it castable? If it's 2 85-year-old women and 7 95-year-old men, we're going to have a rough time. If it's 20-year-olds, got no problem, right? In terms of casting in New York City. So then I'm going to go into rehearsal. I'll have a casting session for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks with my partners who are casting directors, and then we'll start rehearsals. Rehearsal, the first day is a meet and greet. Hi, I'm Bob. Hi, I'm Joe. Hi, I'm Sam. Here's a cup of coffee. Let's read the play. The director talks about it. The designers all talk about, well, we're going to have a door here, and we're going to have a window here, and you're going to be wearing blue, and you're going to be wearing red. After that, we all walk away. 3 weeks later, they start doing run-throughs of the play or the musical, and then they go into what they call tech, which is to put what the rehearsal studio work, the play, now on the stage with all the elements, lights, sound, costumes, set, etc., etc. That takes a week. And then we go into previews, and previews will take anywhere between 1 and 3 weeks, where an audience now is informing the work we've done, and they're telling us that's boring, or they're laughing, or they're crying. So we can tell by listening to the audience, as you know, you can tell yourselves when you sit in an audience, you can tell whether they're with the stage or not with the stage. That period is 3 weeks, and then the critics come. And the critics will say yay or nay on the production, and then we run 4 weeks after that. That's a typical production in my nonprofit. In a Broadway musical, they'll cast for 4 weeks. They'll do a national search. Then they might even do 1 or 2 workshops prior to rehearsal, workshops to discuss what's the choreography, what's the language of the choreography, to discuss what's the play about, does this work, what's the music about. They'll do various and sundry workshops because it's cheaper to do a workshop than get everybody together in the same room. That's very expensive. Typically, they'll do 5 to 6 weeks of rehearsal in the room. They used to go to Boston, Philadelphia, Chicago, Wilmington, and back to New York. They don't do that anymore. Sometimes they go to a nonprofit like me. I do the first version, and then they get the reviews. It transfers to Broadway. But if that doesn't happen, like they'll do a show they'll do previews. Some previews in New York City have been months.
Yeah.
Months, 8 weeks, 10 weeks. Have been months, and other times it's been a matter of a few weeks, and then they're up to just throw the dice and see what happens.
I wish we could continue this a little further, Judy. Mr. LuPone and Cathy have to be at the Atlanta Library very shortly now. Happily, that's just a mile up the road here. Robert, we appreciate your spending your time with us.
I like
this
it here.
Cathy, thank you.
You can come again.
Thank
Well,
you
could
very much.
could I just add that anybody who would like to come and see the show is more than welcome. It's at 6:15 on Friday night in the space above the Palms Grill Cafe. You come in the front door of the Atlanta Museum, head to the elevator, and come up, and you'll see what we've been working on all week.
I didn't get that. Could you say that one more time? It's when is it?
It's 6:15 Friday night.
This Friday?
This Friday,
Okay.
Be there, Bob.
upstairs of the above the Atlanta Museum.
I sense a little responsibility there coming along.
And here's what you'll see.
Well done,
you'll
Robert.
You'll see a lot of excited kids. Very excited kids. Probably nervous.
Hopefully not falling all over each other, but we'll see.
Oh, but it
It's a
sounds like
risk.
such fun.
We've always tried to close Viewpoint with a quotation that's somewhat analogous to the subject matter of the morning. And I found when Stephen Sondheim made this quote, and it certainly concludes into what you alluded to just shortly ago, Robert. At best, performers bring to their role something more, something different than what the author put on paper. And that's what makes theater alive. And that's why theater exists.
Exactly.
Thank you very much, Robert
Thank you.
LuPone.
This was
Bless
Johnny.
you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.